Yeah, so that's another way we insulate the greenhouse. I guess it works for heating and cooling, but there's 2 layers of this polyplastic here, and there's a pump that inflates in between the 2 layers. So right here there's probably like almost a foot of air in between the 2 layers. So that obviously helps insulate it, makes it a lot easier to heat it, but it also keeps it really, really tight in windstorms, because we do every now and then get some bad winds around here, and this keeps it from ripping to shreds. So
I'm betting the weight of snow on the roof too.
Yeah,
slides off.
Yep, it slides off. It just because the greenhouse is heated. So
It melts right off.
like even in those gnarly snow and sideways storms, it'll get an inch on there and then fall off.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jason.
This is Snake Envy. Zach, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell everybody where they can see you on social media.
Yeah, so I'm Zach with The Life Exotic. All my social media stuff is just a Life Exotic, pretty simple, and this is our tropical rainforest greenhouse.
Yeah, so we're in northern Utah. It is just a few days before Thanksgiving. It is rainy / snowy out. As we were driving up, the mountains to the east of us are covered in snow. But in here, it's a tropical rainforest.
Yeah, there's a little bit of rain, but no snow in here, you know?
Yeah.
So we keep this tropical year round, which is kind of a difficult thing here to do in northern Utah, but we manage with a few little systems we put in place, and yeah, it's working, I guess. You can see little tropical plants and animals all over the place.
Hey, so what got you into this? Like, and as far as the reptile portion, like the reptile and amphibian, like what drew you at to that?
So I'll kind of just give a quick breakdown, but start from the beginning. I started as I've always been obsessed with animals and ecosystems and everything like that, obviously, like most of us, I'm sure. And I started with fish keeping, actually. When I was probably 11, 12 years old, I got really into freshwater aquariums. And then I got into reptiles, specifically snakes. Snakes have always been my favorite thing. But I kind of branched out and do a little bit of everything. Then I got into saltwater fish keeping, and then back into reptiles. And then since then, I've been just kind of all over the place. Throughout my teens and 20s, I've just been obsessed with animals, but I could never really stick to one thing. Like, I tried the ball python breeding craze, you know. I tried, and I would get burnt out on it, you know. I'd get kind of sick of everything. And I finally, after, almost 2 decades of doing it, I figured out that my thing that I really enjoy and I find entertainment from is creating ecosystems and everything a part of it. So the big, bioactive vivarium craze kind of got big. I've been into dart frogs for a long time. So I was always kind of into building custom vivariums and stuff. And then when bioactive stuff started kicking off again, I was like, oh, this is something other people are starting to do. I started entertaining it a little bit more, and then kind of just spiraled out of control, and now I'm here. So yeah, I'm really interested in how different species and different things interact, including plants and insects and everything. I'm into the whole ecosystem instead of just keeping one specific thing. So I tried to stick to just one specific thing, and I could never do it. I'd always be burnt out. So.
Yeah. People know me as a snake guy, but this is how I started. I was building back in the 80s bioactive aquariums. Not how great they are now, but technology and everything, and the information's coming. But I always kept lizards and frogs. I'm known as a snake person now, but yeah.
See, that's cool. It's cool being well-rounded.
Yeah, but this is I love this.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
You are living the dream of every enthusiast in this hobby, because we all dream of taking a spare bedroom or part of the basement and creating an ecosystem like this. And most of us along the way either have family who says, no, you're not going to do that, or we don't have a spare bedroom. I don't have a basement currently. So what explain the jump from vivariums to saying I'm going for it, and is it a family affair? Is your family completely on board? Do they help out, or is this your baby?
It's me and my girlfriend Tiffany. For 99% of it. So we built all this from scratch. We maintain all of this, but I do have people that help. Like my dad, he helps. He feeds the fish on weekdays when I'm working late because I work a lot. And then when I travel and go on vacation, he'll feed the fish, and then I have some other friends that do similar things that take care of it for me while I'm gone. But yeah, as far as the jump of just getting into it, I don't know, I'd always dreamed of it, but it was always that dream in the back of my mind,
Right.
you know, just like everybody else. And it did start out as a bedroom. I was going to build like a full shower pan and waterproof a
Yeah.
bedroom, you know. And the original plan was like multiple large cages, but climate control the whole bedroom. And then slowly that evolved and evolved. And then I came up with the idea one day of doing the greenhouse detached from the house, which seemed impossible, but I started finding stuff about geothermal greenhouses and ways to make it efficient enough to be able to afford it in Utah. And I started kind of thinking it was possible. And honestly, I was like pipelining, doing natural gas pipeline, and I was living out on the road. I was kind of burnt out on it. I was sick of just like life being mundane, and something like snapped in me one day, honestly, and I just said, I'm going home this weekend, and I'm just building it. So I went home, and I pitched the idea to my parents here at their house, and my dad's all about it. He loves it, you know. He loves this. He doesn't really know as much about the stuff, but he loves just coming in here and enjoying it. My mom loves plants. She's got house plants everywhere, so it was an easy idea to kind of pitch, you know. I don't think they knew quite how extreme it was going to turn out, but yeah, they said they were down for it, and the next weekend I rented a skid steer and came over here and destroyed their yard and started building it. And then I think me and Tiffany probably didn't do anything fun or sleep hardly for almost 2 years while we were building this. We're on year 3 of this right now.
This is year 3.
Yeah.
Now, did it start with a single species like frogs or maybe animals you already have? What was the evolution? Because if I'm not mistaken, snakes have been kind of the latest addition to this, or have they been here for quite a while?
They've been here for, 6 months or so.
6 months,
So
okay.
relatively, well, everything's relatively recent. I think the first plant went in the ground 11 months ago.
Okay.
And they were all tiny little cuttings too.
So it's
So this is
basically
one
2
summer's
years to
worth of
build, and then you've
Wow,
been
this
adding.
is really
Okay.
thrown in
Yeah.
that quick. Wow.
Yeah, I'm actually like shocked. I'll tell you with some of the plants too. We've got plants to flower that were supposed to take 3 to 5 years, and they're only 6 months old. But yeah, as far as the animals, I kind of built it from the bottom of the ecosystem up, you know. So once I felt like it was a suitable enough habitat, the first thing I got was, well, insects and stuff. I've been introducing isopods and springtails and stuff for a few months. And then I got dart frogs. So I have the Phalabates terribilis in here, the Blackfoot orange. So they were the first thing to go in. And that was kind of nerve-wracking because that was like the first test, you know. Like even like with an amphibian, you know, like there's nothing poisonous that's leached out of the bricks or anything, you know. So they did great. Everything was good, and then we kind of just slowly went up from there. As plants grew in, as there became habitat for certain animals, we added certain animals. So like I wasn't going to add the snakes when we had a tiny little 3-foot tree with 2 branches, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like slowly as some of the smaller plants grew in, added more frogs, more small lizards, and now we got a pretty good list going. Getting pretty close to what I'm going to have in here. I'm not going to add like a whole lot more. I'm just going to increase numbers of what's already in here.
Is this a hodgepodge of species from around the world, or are you replicating a specific part of it?
So the plan was to do Amazon basin originally, but then part of what we want to do with this eventually is I'm going to file a nonprofit. We're going to do like educational tours in here and stuff and try to get like schools to come do field trips and everything. So some of that is already in the works, but I hit a point where in this small of a space, I decided that it would have more of an impact if I could just showcase as many unique interactions as possible and symbiotic relationships. I think limiting myself to one place would be really difficult. Eventually, I would love to build a different greenhouse that is like region specific, but I will say this is still like 85% Amazon basin because that's my favorite and that's kind of my specialty. But there is a little bit of Southeast Asian here. We've got the emerald tree skinks and stuff.
So before you show us around, real quick, we were talking about the weather, and obviously we live in a 4-season climate. This is not an Amazon climate. What is involved? Because when you think of a greenhouse for starting vegetables or doing things like that, it's largely just simply utilizing the sun in the winter. I'm imagining you have to do a lot more here, and you probably actually have to bring the temperature down in the summer. So talk a little bit about how all that works in terms of maintaining a climate.
Yeah, so really the method with all this is just a lot of little things to make it more efficient. Any one source of heating or cooling would probably be too much for me to afford. So we started by building the greenhouse. We dug this with a 8-foot deep pit in the ground. We installed, for lack of a better term, geothermal heating and cooling system. It's more like an air source earth bank, I guess you could call it. But so there's a grid work of 4-inch pipes that run all the way underneath us, and then we have these fans that blow air. So they suck the air from the top of the greenhouse and blow it down through the ground. So in the summer and during hot days, that cools down the air significantly because the ground temperature is pretty stable, and then it blows out cooler air. So that helps us kind of cool. And then at night, when it's really cold, the top of the greenhouse is the coldest spot because it has the most wind exposure, so it takes that cool air and it pumps it through the ground that we've kind of been heating up all day with the hot air. So for the price of 2 duct fans running, basically, that helps heat and cool quite a bit. And it just creates a lot of airflow, which I'm a proponent of. And then aside from that, we have a big natural gas heater, a shop heater. That is like the main source of heating. And for cooling, we have to rely on ventilation and evaporative cooling. So there's a big 30-inch exhaust fan at the front of the greenhouse that pulls air out. And then at the back of the greenhouse, there is 2 vents that automatically open whenever that fan turns on, which the heater and the fan are all hooked to thermostats, so I can set the temperature to whatever I want. And then inside of the vents, there's also big custom evaporative cooling pads that we built. So you can think of it like a swamp cooler, which also helps because it's very, very dry here in Utah. So if we're ventilating a lot, it's really hard to keep it humid in here. The swamp cooler running, it helps take the dry air from outside and humidify it before it pulls it in. And then we also have one of the most important things is a misting system. So the whole greenhouse is run just like a vivarium off a giant misting system. So it's all set to a timer. I have to eventually I'd like to do a lot more complex one, but for now it's just on a timer, so I have to adjust it during different seasons, you know. So fall, now's the awkward season where it's if we have a hot day, I gotta go crank it up.
Right.
If we have just bad weather for a week, I gotta turn it down or it's just soaking wet in here.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah, so and the pond is also heated to 80 degrees with that heat pump, an air source heat pump. So the pond being heated also helps heat and humidify the whole greenhouse.
Well, we'll have more questions as we go, but let's have you show them around.
Yeah.
And let's take in as much of the animal life as we can. And I'm really curious, too, about some of the plants.
Yeah.
And what are flowering, what not, all that good stuff. I also see things like that up there. Are there plans for birds or birds?
No.
Or?
I did originally want to do birds. That was the plan. And just over the course of the last few years, researching stuff and meeting people that run world-class aviaries and stuff, and meeting people that are a lot more experienced with birds, because that's something I have no experience with.
Yeah.
I've just decided it's a bad idea. Birds and reptiles just tend to not mix. Even birds that aren't aggressive will just pick on small lizards. I really wanted to do a arisari, a crow-crested arisari, a little miniature toucan, because they're frugivores, so they shouldn't mess with any animals. And they're not like parrots. They don't chew on stuff and destroy stuff. But I've talked to people that are like, yeah, I have a male and a female, and the male just tortures lizards. Kills them and throws them away. So I'm like, and they're just so destructive to plants and stuff. I'm friends with one horticulturist at Tracy Aviary, and he's really into plants, and he's like, I can't have anything nice. The birds destroy everything. So he's kind of convinced me out of it. So probably no birds.
We have chickens in our backyard, and we can attest to that. When they're turned loose in the yard, everything is fair game. The dirt, the ground, the grass, every plant in the garden, they go to town. So, all right, let's have you start wherever you think is best, and let's show this place out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thanks.
This is Rhacophorus reinwardtii. So this is the blue-webbed gliding frog. We have 6 of these in here. We have 2 females and 4 males. I've not noticed them breeding at all yet, but hopefully they will. But you can see they got those big, huge, bright blue webbed feet. It looks like a bunch of stuff we just thrown in here randomly, but like every single plant was placed with quite a bit of thought. This pond still has a lot of work to be done too. You can see we have a couple plants hanging out in the back. One of my upcoming goals is to build big bog planters all the way around the edge and pack it with really cool rare plants so it'll simulate a shoreline, kind of make this more natural looking, and then the plants will filter the water, and it's just, there's no downside to it really. So we're starting to get some plants in here, but there's still a lot of work to be done. This is heated to 80 degrees year round because these are all tropical fish. So it's heated and cooled to stay 80 degrees. And hopefully this summer or this spring I can get some babies from some of these peacock bass. So they were starting to pair up just recently, but yeah, nothing yet. This is the heat pump that heats it, and then this is all the filtration for it. So I have like a UV filter. I have to change out the bulb once a year or so. And then with this pressure filter, I can drain water. So I can hook up a pipe that runs outside, or I can use the water inside the greenhouse to kind of help with some fertilization for the plants. But about once a week or once every other week, I flush the filter out, just cleans all the gunk out of the filter and does a little bit of a water change, but nothing crazy. eventually when the plants are grown in, I won't have to do that at all because the nitrates and the ammonia and everything will stay so low in the pond regardless, just because of the plants. But I will still do it just to clean the filter so the filter works properly.
So, other than adding maybe some additional frog species, things like that, what's the dream? What would complete this for you in terms of species? Or are there possibilities for like turtles, something like that?
That's really hard. As far as the dream goes, it changes constantly. Like I'm into something new constantly. And I really want to get some Bleedoglossa, the little mushroom tongue arboreal salamanders. Those guys are awesome. I want to add a species of glass frog. I would love to add some sort of turtle, but I just don't think it's feasible because they would just cause too many problems, you know. Like everybody wants me to add a tortoise, but they would destroy everything in here. And then even like the the black-breasted leaf turtles, they're really cool, but they'd probably eat my dart frogs, especially the younger ones. So I haven't really found a turtle that
you
would
have to worry about a turtle getting flipped over or not finding it for a week.
But no, there's a few more species I want to add, but for the time being, I'm going to just focus on increasing the populations of the ones I do have and getting really well established. I forgot to mention, but I do have Williams in here, Lygodactylus, the blue day geckos. I have a pair of them in here, so we probably will not see unless it gets real sunny out. But if it gets real sunny out, the male may come out. So I'd like to get a nice group of 10 or so of them, and I'm actually trying to source the species of pandan tree that they live on in the wild and get a small version of that growing in here so they can live on it like they do in the wild. But yeah, just things like that. I don't know, a few more species. Nothing, there's no any like one pinnacle species. I think that's the snakes for me, and I already got them, so